Hello, how are you? And welcome. Cesar Pietri here once again. And today I want to talk to you about how we can find our ideal client. In this presentation, I am going to talk to you about 7 questions that can help you identify them, okay? Many of you already know that any marketing strategy must be focused on a specific market niche and our ideal client, the client to whom we want to deliver our service, our product, and with whom we feel uh, most comfortable when developing our business. So it's very important that you, if you haven't done so yet, focus on defining who your ideal client is. So today I'm going to present those 7 questions that will help you get a first idea of who that client could be. Before this, let's talk a little about what a market niche is, okay? If we go to Wikipedia, we can see that the term market niche is widely used in marketing, right? And this refers, just as Wikipedia says, to a portion of a market segment where individuals have homogeneous characteristics and needs. And these latter needs are not entirely covered by the general market supply. So we can say that a market niche is a group of people who have a common problem and can solve it with the service or product you offer. Our ideal client will be someone who is looking for a solution to a problem that you can help solve. So, our market niche is basically going to be that group of people to whom we can deliver our offer or product and who will be interested in solving the problem they have. This brings me to a term that I like to talk about when I give training, and it's what I call congregation, right? I present here a religious image because one of the examples I like you to understand to give you an idea of this concept of congregation is the following. Imagine that you were sellers or that you have to sell a religious product, okay? Let's say, for instance, that you are Bible sellers. What place or location do you think could gather the largest number of people interested in acquiring a product like this? The vast majority of you in the trainings I conduct usually respond that in a church, and evidently a church would be an ideal place for us to offer this product, or let's say this service. Why? Because it is a place where we have gathered a group of people with similar characteristics who are directly focused on becoming potential buyers of our product or service. Why is this important? Because if we apply this to our market niche and our ideal client, once we define these two parts, we can simply go online to find these congregations online, right? Imagine it could be something like a forum about our market niche, or even a Facebook group where we have gathered many ideal clients, okay? So to find our market niche, I want to give you these 3 simple questions to give you an idea of what your market niche might encompass. The first one you should ask yourself is, what is my area of expertise? What am I good at? What is my profession? What am I passionate about? In what area do I have knowledge that can help other people? Very well. After answering this question, the next thing you need to ask yourself is, who are my clients? If your business is already up and running, it will obviously be a bit easier to answer this question, as you will know who your current customer base is. You will be able to define their characteristics, age range, gender preferences, a certain information that will help you define the pattern that each of them repeats, right? And then the last question you can ask yourself is, who is my competition? Why is it important to know who your competition is? First, because it will give you an idea that this market niche is a viable market niche, okay? That you have the opportunity to take a piece of that pie, right? Why is it important to know who your competition is? Simply because nowadays there are many tools that allow us to investigate what that competition is doing on the internet, on social media, on the very websites of our competition. So if we see that our competition is doing something that is working, then that information will help us to be able to model what our competition is doing. So basically, with these three questions, we will have an idea of what our market niche could be. Let me remind you then, what is my area of expertise? What am I a professional in? Who are my clients? If I currently have a client base, then we will take advantage of that information to generate our ideal client profile. And who is my competition? Let's remember that knowing who the competition is important, as it will allow us to see what they are currently doing and model it, okay? The next thing I'm going to show you, which is actually the content I want to talk to you about today, are 7 questions that will help you identify your ideal client. The first question is, what gender do I prefer to work with? Do I prefer to work with men? Do I prefer to work with women? With which gender do I feel more comfortable? Or even if my product or service is focused on a particular gender, well, here we are going to answer that question. Then we will answer what age range in 20-year periods I prefer. Here I give an example between 35 and 45 years old. Let's say your service is some type of experience. You offer to your client, what age range do you prefer to work with? Do you prefer to work with young people? Do you prefer to work with millennials? Do you prefer to work with someone a bit older, around 40 years old? What is your preferred age range to offer your service or product? You can also think about it in terms of purchasing power. Perhaps a 20-year-old who is studying might not have the economic capacity or financial muscle to access your product or service. The next question you should ask yourself is, what does my program on Pine product or service do that is different from the rest? Look for what is that differentiating factor of your product compared to the competition. What will allow you to position yourself above that competition? What is your unique selling proposition? Very well. The next question is, what are my special gifts and talents that are part of me and my story and that no one else has? With this, what we are trying to achieve is to define who your ideal client is and at the same time know how you can position yourself as an expert or above your competition. The purpose of this is basically that when this client is ready to buy Pietri and prepared to make the purchase, you become the best option for them at the moment of purchase. Very well, since at this point you have had the opportunity to make a difference in relation to your competition, or simply have managed to position yourself as an expert in your sector or niche. Very well. The next question I have for you is the ideal client I choose available through paid advertising on Facebook or other social platforms? And here I put in parentheses, yes, you must have an advertising budget to be successful. Nowadays we are going to take advantage of all these tools that exist on the internet, right? Well, we have the opportunity to spy on our competition, to model them, to see what they are doing. So let's also take advantage of these platforms, where we already have those groups or congregations of ideal clients. Once you define who your ideal client is, what their age range is, what their interests are, we can go to Facebook, for example, and look for groups where that type of client gathers. Very well. And then there, what we are simply going to do is try to enter into that conversation that already exists. We are going to access those groups. We are even going to, through a paid advertising campaign, show our message to that target audience, that ideal client, okay? Then we are going to ask ourselves how I can segment, Turkey, or group my niche to become known as a super expert in my field. We define our ideal client. We define what our market niche is. And then within that market niche, which segment of that market niche we can access. That is, let's say like a micro niche, a small fragment of that market in which Your specialty allows you to position yourself as an expert within that small segment, right? Since in this way, the closing of the sale or the interest in buying your product or hiring your services will happen much more smoothly. Okay? The person already knows you. The person has identified that they have a need, a pain point, and throughout this process, using these tools, you have managed to position yourself as the best option for them to become your client. Very well, so it's important to think about how you can segment now that ein market niche. Very well. The next question is simply to know if there are others who are already successful in the market you want to serve, right? If the answer is no, meaning there are no other people accessing that market, or it's a market where there is no competition, well, there might be a reason for that. So, think carefully if you are trying to enter a market where there is no product competition or competition at the level of other companies. There must be a reason for it. Very well. However, if your answer is affirmative, then certainly what you can do is become aware that if there is competition in that sector, it's very likely that you can access a part of it, right? You might be able to access a market share. So well, this is all for this brief presentation. Simply what I wanted was to present to you a few questions that can help guide you when defining on who your ideal client will be. So I bid you farewell for now, and I am speaking to you, Cesar Pietri.